The colony ship broke through the clouds of a wild, untamed world. Its silver body glowed in the alien sun as it descended, shaking the ground with fire and thunder. Inside, men and women held their breath. For years they had traveled through the empty void of space. Now, at last, they had found a new home, a fresh beginning. The hatch opened with a hiss, and the first group stepped onto the soil. Strange plants swayed in the wind, tall and sharp like blades. The air was heavy but breathable. Far in the distance, dark mountains rose like broken teeth against the horizon. This world was beautiful, but it was not empty. Hunters were the first to move out. They carried rifles and scanners, sweeping the forest edge. It was their job to make sure nothing dangerous came close to the new camp. The ground was soft beneath their boots, and the trees bent inward as if whispering secrets to one another. Then they heard it. A sound, faint at first. A cry. It was not the sound of wind, nor the creak of wood. It was alive, weak, desperate, calling for help. The hunters froze, raising their weapons. Again the sound came, higher this time. A whimper, a small, helpless cry that tugged at the heart. The leader of the hunters, Captain Hale, motioned forward. Carefully, they pushed through the brush. And there, lying in the shadows of twisted roots, they saw it. A cub. It was small, its fur a strange mix of silver and black, with glowing eyes like embers fading in the dark. Its chest rose and fell weakly. Blood marked its side where something had clawed it. The creature trembled, too weak to move, yet still alive. One of the hunters lowered his rifle. It's just a baby." But another stepped back, shaking his head. "No, that's not a baby. That's one of them." Nobody spoke for a moment. Everyone had seen the reports. This world was not unclaimed. Somewhere beyond the mountains lived a race of predators, intelligent and fierce. They were taller than men, stronger than beasts, and they ruled the forests with claws and fire. If this cub was theirs, then touching it could mean danger beyond imagination, the hunters argued. "We can't leave it here. It'll die. If we bring it back, we invite war. It's only a child. Look at it. It doesn't matter. Its kind will come for it. And for us," the cub whimpered again, a soft, broken sound that pierced the heart. Its glowing eyes met Captain Hale's, and in that moment, something inside him shifted. He had fought wars, seen death, but he could not walk away from a child, any child, even one not human. He made the choice. "Pick it up," he said firmly. "We're taking it back." The others hesitated, fear on their faces. But orders were orders. One man carefully lifted the cub into his arms. The creature made no attempt to fight. It only curled against the warmth, weak and trembling. Back at the colony, news spread quickly. Men, women, and children gathered around to see the strange cub. Some smiled, some whispered, some looked on in fear. Arguments flared again. "This is madness! If its people find out, they'll come for us. We can raise it, study it, maybe even make peace through it. Or maybe we just signed our death sentence." The debate grew heated, but the decision was made. The colony voted, and by a narrow margin they agreed with Captain Hale. The cub would live. That night, the stars burned bright above the colony walls. Fires glowed, guards stood watch, and the cub lay in a small bed of blankets, breathing softly, alive and safe. Children peeked at it with wide eyes, some reaching out, whispering that it looked almost cute. But in the forest, beyond the walls, the shadows were moving. Unseen eyes watched the humans. Silent figures stood among the trees, cloaked in darkness. They had followed the hunter's trail. They had seen the cub taken. One of them knelt to the ground, pressing clawed fingers into the soil where the humans had walked. He whispered in a language older than the stars, a curse carried on the wind. The cub was not just a child. It was blood of the sacred line, heir to a predator clan. To lose it was an insult, a wound that demanded vengeance. The humans did not know. As they slept inside their walls, dreaming of new beginnings, the forest prepared for war. The cub's cry had not only reached the ears of men, it had awakened something far older, something far more dangerous. The war had already begun. The humans just didn't see it yet. The colony woke to a new dawn. Sunlight spilled across the strange world, washing the camp in gold. Tents and metal shelters gleamed under the rising light. Men and women began their work, building walls, digging wells, mapping the forest. For a brief moment, it almost felt like peace. But peace was a fragile thing. The cub slept in a cradle of blankets inside the medical tent. Its small chest rose and fell softly, its fur glimmering faintly as if the sun itself lived beneath its skin. Children peeked in, whispering in awe. Some even dared to touch its paw when no one was watching. Yet outside, many adults whispered different words, fearful words. Captain Hale stood near the edge of the camp, arms crossed, eyes scanning the tree line. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The forest was too quiet. The air itself felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. By midday, his fears proved true. The hunters went out again, searching for food. They returned pale-faced, carrying not prey, but warnings. On the trees around their paths, new marks had appeared. Symbols carved deep into bark with claws sharp as blades, spirals, lines, circles dripping with dark sap like blood. One hunter dropped his rifle in fear. They know. They're watching us. The colony gathered around the markings. None could read the alien language, but all could feel its meaning. It was not a message of peace. It was a threat. A warning carved in wood and blood. That night, the mood shifted. Guards doubled their watch. Fires burned brighter, trying to push back the darkness pressing at the colony walls. Mothers pulled their children close. Every creak of the forest made hearts jump. And then, at midnight, a sound cut through the silence. A horn, low, deep, and ancient. The sound rolled across the forest like thunder. It carried a weight, a promise of violence. The colonists froze, weapons in hand, staring into the night. Shadows moved. From the trees, a figure stepped forward. Tall, cloaked in dark furs, its face hidden by bone. It carried no weapon, yet the guards trembled as if facing an army. The figure stopped at the edge of the firelight. Slowly, it raised its hand, showing it held nothing. The colony leader, Governor Ellis, stepped forward cautiously, Hale at his side. The figure's voice came, broken but clear, speaking in rough human tongue. "Return what you stole." Gasps spread through the crowd. The cub Governor Ellis tried to stand tall. "We saved it. It was dying. We mean no harm." The figure's head tilted, and from the shadows glowing eyes flickered. Dozens of them. Silent watchers stood behind the trees, an army hidden in the dark. The messenger spoke again, each word sharp like stone on steel. Sacred blood, touched by strangers. Sin, crime. For this, death comes. Captain Hale's hand tightened on his rifle. If you wanted war, you would have already attacked. "What do you really want?" The figure hissed, voice echoing with fury. "Return the cub, or burn." With that, it stepped back into the forest. The horn sounded once more, and then silence. The colony erupted into chaos. Some shouted to give the cub back immediately to end this before it was too late. Others argued that surrendering now would show weakness, and the aliens would kill them anyway. Children cried, frightened by the voices and fear in their parents' eyes. Governor Ellis called for order, but no one truly listened. Fear was louder than leadership. Inside the medical tent, the cub stirred, as if sensing the storm outside. Its glowing eyes opened and fixed on the walls, on the world beyond. It whimpered once, softly. Captain Hale entered, staring down at it. He had saved lives before, but never one that carried the weight of war on such small shoulders. Could this fragile creature truly be worth the lives of everyone here? He didn't know. But one thing was certain. The aliens would not stop. The night dragged on. Guards scanned the trees, rifles ready, but no attack came. The forest waited, silent, patient. The only sound was the cub breathing in the dark. When morning came, the colony was restless, exhausted, and afraid. On the eastern wall, a guard shouted in alarm. Everyone rushed to see. There, planted in the ground, stood a spear. Its shaft was black wood, its tip jagged bone. Hanging from it was a strip of human cloth, stolen from their laundry lines in the night. Beneath the spear, carved into the soil, were symbols no one could deny. A countdown, 3 marks, 3 days. The colony had 3 days to return the cub, or face war. The 3 days passed in silence, but the silence was worse than war. Every sunrise brought fresh fear. The colony walls grew higher, rifles were loaded, traps were set. Men and women worked without rest, their eyes always turning toward the dark line of the forest. Children were kept inside the shelters, though their small voices often asked the same question again and again. Why do they want the cub? No one had an answer. The cub itself grew stronger. Its wound began to heal, its glowing eyes clearer now, sharper. It followed people with its gaze, watching them closely, learning. Sometimes it made soft noises like a purr or a hum. Some colonists felt affection for it. Others felt only dread. On the 3rd night, the horn sounded again. This time it was closer. Captain Hale rushed to the wall, rifle ready. Governor Ellis stood beside him, pale but steady. The fires burned bright, lighting the clearing before the colony. The forest was still, too still. And then it happened. A scream. The northern guard tower exploded in flames. The fire lit up the night sky as wooden beams collapsed. A guard fell from the top, his body broken against the ground. Others shouted, firing blindly into the trees. Shapes moved in the dark, fast, silent, shadows with glowing eyes. Arrows whistled through the air, striking metal, wood, and flesh. Colonists screamed as more guards fell. Hale shouted orders, rallying the defense. "Hold the walls! Fire on anything that moves!" Rifles roared. Sparks lit the night as bullets tore into the forest. Some shadows fell, but more kept coming. The air filled with smoke, fire, and the cries of the dying. Governor Ellis grabbed the radio, shouting into it, "All units to the walls! We are under attack!" The cub woke inside the medical tent, its small body trembling. It made a sound, low and mournful, as if it understood what was happening outside. The battle raged for minutes that felt like hours. The colonists fought hard, but they were not soldiers. They were farmers, builders, scientists. Many had never fired a gun before this night. Then, as suddenly as it began, the attack ended. The horn sounded once more. The shadows melted back into the trees. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire and the moans of the wounded. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. The northern tower was gone. 5 colonists were dead. 9 more were injured. The aliens had drawn first blood. Captain Hale stood at the ruined wall, jaw clenched, fury burning in his chest. He had fought battles before, but this was different. This was not soldiers against soldiers. This was survival. This was war. Governor Ellis spoke with a trembling voice. We have to give the cub back before more die," but Hale shook his head. "It's too late. They don't want the cub anymore. They want us to pay." The word spread through the camp like fire. Fear became despair. Some colonists shouted at Hale, demanding he hand the cub over. Others argued it wouldn't matter. The aliens had tasted blood. They would never forgive. In the middle of it all, the cub whimpered. A child's cry in the heart of war. One of the younger colonists, a girl barely 15, whispered what others dared not say aloud. "It's not just a cub, it's something more." No one answered her, but in their hearts, they all felt the same truth. The aliens had not attacked for revenge alone. The cub mattered. It mattered enough to kill for, enough to start a war over. That night, the dead were buried under the alien sky. Their graves were shallow, their names whispered with tears. Children wept, mothers clutched their hands together in prayer. The fires burned low, smoke rising into the heavens. Hale stood watch long after the others had gone to rest. His eyes never left the forest, and there at the edge of the trees, he saw it. A single alien figure stood, tall and silent, glowing eyes fixed on the colony. In its hands it held something dripping red, one of the fallen guards' helmets. The figure raised it slowly, as if in salute. And then, with deliberate care, it crushed the helmet in its claws and dropped it to the ground. Hale's stomach turned cold. This was no warning anymore. This was a promise. The war had truly begun. The attack on the northern wall left the colony shaken. Fear had a face now, burning towers, broken bodies, and glowing eyes in the dark. No one slept well. Every night was filled with whispers, and every shadow seemed alive. But the aliens did not strike again immediately. They waited. They watched. Their silence was like a knife pressed against the throat of the colony. Everyone knew another attack was coming. No one knew when. Captain Hale worked day and night. New barricades were built from scavenged metal. Tripwires were laid across the clearing. Spotlights were raised, their beams cutting into the forest. Ammunition was counted, weapons cleaned. Still, Hale knew the truth. This was not enough. They were farmers, not soldiers. The cub grew stronger each day. Its wound had healed, and it now walked on unsteady legs. Its glowing eyes followed the humans wherever they went. Sometimes it let out soft cries, almost like words. Children visited it secretly, giving it scraps of food. They treated it like a pet, innocent and harmless. But some adults looked at it differently. They saw not a child, but a curse. On the 5th night after the first attack, the horn sounded again. This time there was no warning, no messenger. The aliens came in force. The forest erupted with movement. Dozens, no, hundreds of glowing eyes surged from the shadows. Horns bellowed, drums thundered, and the ground shook under their charge. The colony lit up with gunfire. Spotlights cut through smoke and ash. Bullets tore into the charging figures, dropping some, but more kept coming. Arrows rained from the trees, striking walls and flesh alike. The aliens surrounded the colony, their cries echoing through the night. They climbed the barricades, hacking at wood and steel with blades of bone and fire. The colonists fought desperately, but their lines were thin, their hands untrained. Screams filled the air as aliens leapt over the walls. Close combat began, humans against predators, knives against claws. Blood splashed the ground. Inside the medical tent, the cub cried out. It paced wildly, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. The sound was not just fear. It was rage. Captain Hale cut through the chaos, rallying his people. "Hold the line! Don't let them through!" His rifle barked fire, dropping shadow after shadow. But for every alien that fell, 2 more appeared. The siege lasted hours. Waves of attackers came, broke, and came again. The ground outside the walls turned red with blood. By dawn, the colony still stood, but barely. The barricades were broken, the northern and eastern walls in ruins. 20 colonists were dead, dozens more wounded. Supplies were low, ammunition was running out. Governor Ellis gathered the survivors in the central square. His face was pale, his voice shaking. "We cannot survive another night like this. If we do nothing, we will all die. The cub must be returned. It is our only chance." His words divided the crowd. Some shouted in agreement, desperate for survival. Others argued it was too late. The aliens had tasted blood, and no peace offering would save them now. Hale stood silently, his hands clenched. He looked at the cub, who sat quietly in the arms of a child. Its glowing eyes met his, and for a moment he swore he saw something in them, understanding, perhaps even sorrow. But then the cub did something strange. It lifted its head and let out a cry. Not a whimper, not a baby's sound. A roar. The air vibrated with the sound, and for a moment everyone froze. Lights flickered. The ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet. The roar was not natural. It was power. The colony fell into silence. What was this creature they had saved? Governor Ellis broke the silence, his voice trembling. "If we keep it, we are all doomed. If we give it back, maybe we survive." But Hale's voice was steady, cold. "You're wrong. If we give it back, they'll kill us anyway. They don't want peace. They want revenge. And this cub, it's the reason they'll never stop." No one spoke after that. That night, the fires burned low. The colony's walls were weak, their defenses broken. Everyone knew the aliens would return, but no one knew the truth yet. The cub was not just a child. It was a storm waiting to break, and the next battle would decide whether the colony lived or vanished into the ashes of this world. The siege had left the colony bleeding. Broken walls leaned under their own weight, smoke still rose from blackened wood, and the smell of blood clung to the air. The survivors moved like ghosts. They buried the dead in shallow graves, their hands trembling, their eyes hollow. Children cried quietly, asking for parents who would never return. Every corner of the camp carried fear. But worse than the fear was the doubt. At night, in whispers, colonists spoke of the cub. Some said it was cursed. Others said it was the key to survival. Friends argued. Families split. Trust began to crack. Governor Ellis called a meeting in the main square. His face was pale, his voice heavy. "We cannot endure another siege," he said. "Our food is low. Our walls are weak. Our weapons are few. If they attack again, we are finished." His eyes scanned the crowd. "There is only one way. We must return the cub." A roar of voices followed. Some shouted in agreement, desperate for any chance to live. Others protested, their anger sharp. "They'll kill us anyway," one man cried. "It's too late," another shouted. "They won't forgive what we've done." Captain Hale stood silent until the noise died. His voice was cold and steady. "Listen to me. The aliens will never accept peace. They attacked not for the cub's life, but for our blood. If we give it back, it will not save us. It will only make us weak. And weak colonies do not survive." The argument split the colony in half. But while the voices clashed, one man stood apart. His name was Darrow, a miner-turned-colonist. He had lost his wife in the last attack. His eyes were red, his heart full of grief and rage. To him, the cub was not a child. It was a monster in disguise. That night, while the camp slept, Darrow made his choice. He crept into the medical tent, his hands shaking. The cub lay curled in a blanket, its glowing eyes half closed, watching him silently. It did not cry. It only stared. Darrow whispered, "Because of you, she's dead. Because of you, we all will die." He lifted the cub into his arms, wrapping it in cloth to hide its glow. Step by step, he carried it toward the forest gate. No one saw him slip into the night. The forest swallowed him whole, but Darrow was not alone. Shadows moved among the trees. Glowing eyes appeared in the dark, dozens of them. The aliens had been waiting. A tall figure stepped forward, its armor made of bone and hide, its claws dripping black liquid. Its voice was a growl, yet the words were clear. "You bring it back." Darrow's throat tightened. Fear burned inside him, but his grief was stronger. "Take it." "Leave us alone." He placed the cub on the ground and stepped back. The alien bent down, staring into the cub's glowing eyes. But instead of lifting it, the predator looked at Darrow. "No peace," it growled. "Only blood." Before Darrow could move, the alien struck. His scream echoed through the forest, silenced in an instant. The cub sat untouched, staring at the body of the man who had betrayed it. Its eyes glowed brighter, brighter, until the trees themselves seemed to shiver. Back at the colony, Captain Hale awoke to alarms. Guards shouted from the walls. A body had been found near the forest's edge. Darrow, torn apart, his blood marking the ground, and beside him, carved into the dirt with claws, was a single word in the alien tongue. War. The cub was gone. Panic ripped through the colony. Some cried in relief, believing the danger had passed. Others cursed, certain this meant only more death. Hale stood at the gate, staring into the dark forest. His voice was low, filled with dread. They didn't take it to end the war. They took it to begin something worse. The colony trembled in fear, and far away, in the alien stronghold, the cub's roar echoed, louder, stronger, unnatural. It was no longer the cry of a child. It was the call of something powerful, something that could decide the fate of both human and alien, but in whose hands that fate would rest. No one knew. The colony had lost the cub. Some called it mercy, others called it doom, but no one could deny the truth. The war was far from over. Captain Hale stood on the broken wall, staring into the forest. Smoke still clung to the air from the last siege. Graves lined the ground behind him, too many for so few survivors. His hands were tight on his rifle. His heart burned with anger. "They won't stop," he muttered. "The cub was never enough. They want to see us destroyed. Governor Ellis tried to keep hope alive. He told the people that returning the cub would bring peace, but even he looked pale when the scouts returned at dawn. The report was grim. The aliens were gathering in numbers never seen before. Camps filled the forest. War banners of bone and blood marked the trees. Entire hunting packs moved as one. The message was clear. The colony would not see another sunrise unless it fought. That night, the attack came. The horn sounded like thunder. Drums shook the earth. From the trees poured a tide of shadows, hundreds of warriors with blades, claws, and fire. Their war cries split the night. The colonists fought like cornered animals. Bullets roared, walls shook, and the clearing turned into a storm of fire and blood. But the numbers were too great. The barricades shattered under the weight of the enemy. Aliens swarmed the colony. They tore into the outer defenses, dragging men and women down with claws and teeth. Screams filled the air. Captain Hale rallied his people in the center square. "Hold the line!" he shouted, firing until his rifle was hot in his hands. But even as he fought, he knew they could not win this battle. And then it happened. A roar cut through the chaos. Not the horn. Not the aliens. Something else. Something deeper. From the forest's edge came the cub. No longer weak, no longer helpless. Its glowing eyes burned like fire, its small body trembling with power. The aliens parted as it stepped forward, their chants falling into silence. The cub roared again. The ground shook. The air vibrated like thunder. And then the world changed. A blast of energy erupted from the cub, invisible yet unstoppable. The air cracked, the soil split, and a wave of force threw soldiers, human and alien alike, to the ground. Fires were snuffed out, weapons scattered. For a heartbeat, silence ruled. Then the screaming began again, but this time the screams came from the aliens. Their warriors staggered, clutching their heads as if in pain. Some fell, blood streaming from their ears. Others fled into the trees. The cub stood in the center of the clearing, its small chest rising and falling, its eyes glowing brighter with every second. The colonists stared in shock. Governor Ellis whispered, It's not just a cub. It's something more." Captain Hale's jaw tightened. He had suspected, but now the truth was undeniable. The cub was a weapon, a living weapon of impossible power. The aliens regrouped, their leader stepping forward. A massive figure, taller than any man, scarred and armored in bone. His eyes glowed with fury as he pointed at the cub. "Return it to us," he roared in his own tongue. "It belongs to the bloodline." But the cub turned its glowing gaze not to the aliens, but to the humans. It let out another cry, softer this time, almost like a choice. The aliens attacked again, furious, desperate. But the humans, inspired by what they had seen, fought harder than ever. They drove the enemy back inch by bloody inch, until the forest swallowed them once more. The siege was broken. The colony still stood, but the truth hung heavy in the air. The cub had chosen them, not its own kind. Not the bloodline it was born from. It had unleashed its power for the humans, saving them when all seemed lost. As dawn broke, the survivors gathered in the square. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide. Some looked at the cub with awe, others with fear. Governor Ellis spoke softly, his voice unsteady. "If we keep it, we may survive. But if we do, the aliens will never stop. They will come again in greater numbers. They will burn the stars themselves to take it back." Captain Hale looked at the cub, who sat quietly at his feet, its glowing eyes locked on his, and for the first time, he wondered if the war was no longer about humans or aliens. Perhaps it was about something much larger. Perhaps it was about the cub itself. The dawn after the cub's awakening brought no peace. The colony still stood, but it stood on broken bones. Half the walls were gone, their defenses shattered. Survivors moved like shadows, patching holes with scraps of metal and wood, knowing it would never be enough. They had lived through the night, but the cost was written in blood. Dozens lay dead. Twice as many were wounded. Yet still, the forest beyond the walls whispered with danger. The aliens had been pushed back, not defeated. Captain Hale gathered the people in the square. His voice was low, steady, but heavy with truth. They will come again, stronger, in greater numbers. They want the cub, and they will not stop until one of us is gone. Governor Ellis stepped forward, pale and shaking. We cannot fight them forever. We are outnumbered. We are outmatched. If we resist, we die. If we surrender the cub, perhaps they will spare us. The crowd broke into chaos. Some shouted for surrender. Others demanded they fight. Fear clawed at every voice. Then the cub stepped forward. Its glowing eyes swept across the people. Its small body seemed to hum with energy, as if power lived inside its bones. And when it let out a soft cry, the crowd fell silent. Captain Hale spoke again. It chose us. When the battle turned, it fought for us, not them. That means something. And if this is our last stand, then we make it count. We fight not only for our lives, but for the future. The colonists looked at one another. Some still trembled. But one by one, heads began to nod. Fear turned into something harder, something sharper. Resolve. All day the survivors prepared. Traps were laid in the ruins of the walls. Spikes were hammered into the ground. Molotov fires were readied. Ammunition was counted, every bullet precious. Even children carried stones, ready to fight if the walls fell. The cub followed them, watching, silent. It no longer seemed helpless. It seemed like a shadow of something far greater, something that even the aliens feared. That night, the forest lit with fire. The aliens came. Drums thundered. Horns bellowed. The trees shook as hundreds of warriors poured into the clearing. Banners of bone and blood waved above their heads. Their leader strode at the front, his armor glistening in the firelight, his eyes burning with rage. The colonists stood ready. Guns raised, traps set, fires burning. Hale at the front, his rifle in hand, his jaw like stone. Hold, he ordered. The aliens roared. The ground shook with their charge. Now, Hale shouted. The clearing erupted. Spikes hidden in the dirt impaled the first wave. Molotov fire lit the night, burning alien flesh. Gunfire split the air, bullets tearing through the attackers. Screams rose as the first lines fell, but still they came. Wave after wave crashed against the colony. Arrows rained. Claws tore. Blades struck. The walls shook under their fury. The colonists fought like demons. Every man, woman, and child poured their fear and rage into the fight. Blood ran in the mud. Fire painted the night sky red. At the center of it all stood the cub. Its eyes glowed brighter than the flames, its cry rising above the chaos. Power rippled from its small body, waves that shook the air. Where it stood, the aliens faltered. Some stumbled back. Others clutched their heads, blood pouring from their ears. But the alien leader pushed forward, unstoppable. His roar split the night as he cut through the defenders, his bone blade dripping red. His eyes locked on the cub. This ends now, he bellowed. He lunged. The cub roared and the ground cracked beneath them. The force of it threw soldiers, human and alien alike, into the air. The leader staggered, but he did not fall. Captain Hale rushed forward, firing until his rifle clicked empty. He grabbed a spear from the ground and hurled it with all his strength. The weapon struck true, piercing the alien leader's chest. The giant roared, falling to his knees. His glowing eyes dimmed as he collapsed, his body shaking the ground. For a moment, silence. Then the aliens cried out, not in victory, but in fear. Their leader was dead, their bloodline broken. One by one, they fled into the forest. Their horns faded. Their drums fell silent. The siege was over. The colonists stood among fire and ash, their bodies broken but alive. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had made their last stand and won. The cub stood in the square, its eyes dimming, its small body trembling. It had fought for them, chosen them, saved them. But Hale knew the truth. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The battlefield was silent. Smoke curled from the ruins of the colony. Fires burned low, casting long shadows across the broken walls. The ground was soaked with blood, human and alien alike. The war drums were gone. The forest, once filled with screams, was quiet again. The colonists had survived. But survival came at a price. Rows of bodies lay in the square, covered with torn cloth. Fathers, mothers, brothers, friends, too many names to count. The survivors moved like ghosts, their eyes hollow, their voices low. Victory had come, but it had stolen so much from them. Captain Hale stood at the edge of the graves, his face like stone. He had led them through fire, through fear, through the darkest night. But even he could not escape the weight pressing on his shoulders. Governor Ellis walked beside him, his hands trembling. "We fought," he whispered. "We won? But at what cost? Half our people are gone. Our walls are destroyed. Supplies are almost nothing. And the forest? The forest still watches us." Hale did not answer. He knew Ellis was right. This was not the end. The aliens would return. They always returned. Then his gaze shifted. The cub sat quietly near the ruins, its glowing eyes fixed on the graves. Its body seemed smaller now, weaker, as though the battle had drained it. Yet even in its weakness, there was something unearthly about it. Something powerful. Something dangerous. The colonists kept their distance. Some looked at it with awe, others with fear. One woman whispered, "It saved us." Another spat, "It cursed us." The cub turned its glowing gaze toward Hale. For a moment, man and creature stared at one another. Hale felt the weight of that look, as if the cub saw more than just him, as if it saw his soul. Governor Ellis's voice broke the silence. "What do we do with it?" The question cut through the survivors like a blade. If they kept the cub, the aliens would return in greater numbers, stronger and angrier. If they gave it up, they would lose their only weapon, their only protector. The colony stood at a crossroads, one choice leading to destruction, the other to something far more dangerous. Hale finally spoke. "We do what we've always done. We survive. And to survive, we keep it. Because without it, we're already dead." Some nodded. Others turned away, uneasy. But no one argued. The cub blinked once, almost as if it understood. Days passed. The colony buried its dead. Fires were put out. The walls were rebuilt, not strong, but enough to stand another day. Children laughed again, though softly, as if afraid the sound might bring the enemy back. But the forest was never silent. Scouts reported strange movements in the distance. Shadows moved among the trees. Alien banners hung high again, not in surrender, but in warning. The tribes had not given up. They were waiting, watching, preparing, and worse still, rumors spread among the survivors. Some said they had seen the cub change, that in the night its body had glowed brighter, its shape twisting into something larger, something terrifying. Others swore they heard whispers in their sleep, a voice not human, not alien, but something in between, coming from the cub itself. Fear returned, growing like a sickness. Governor Ellis confronted Hale one night by the fire. "You don't understand what you've done," he hissed. "That creature isn't a savior. It's a weapon that doesn't belong to us. And weapons like that, they always turn on the ones who hold them." Hale said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the cub who slept nearby, glowing faintly in the dark. The final blow came a week later. A scout stumbled back into the colony, bloody and broken. His voice was hoarse, his eyes wide with terror. "They're coming," he gasped. "Not just one tribe. All of them. Thousands. They march as one." Panic swept the colony. The survivors clutched their weapons, their fear rising again like fire. Captain Hale tightened his grip on his rifle. His jaw hardened. "Then we fight," he said, but deep inside, he knew this battle would be different. This time, the aliens were not coming for revenge. They were coming for the cub, and the question was no longer if the humans could survive. It was whether the cub would let them.